thank you, Khaki Lab, for having me over this evening to talk about something that has captivated me for the last 10 years, has become a passion, and I hold very, very dear to me, myself. Just a brief on how I got involved in this is that we have been associated with one of the oldest temples in Vrindavan, the Radha Raman temple. And during one of my visits, which happened to be during the Shraddha period, I witnessed the Sanjhi art for the first time. And I was absolutely amazed by the complexity, the dexterity, and the devotion that goes into this art form. And also I realized that it wasn't just others, but my own family who had been associated with the temple and Vrindavan for the longest didn't really know much about this absolutely exquisite art form. And that's when I decided to kind of work on it, tell the world about this absolutely astounding art form. So I shall not take any more time on this, and shall move to tell you what is really Sanjhi and how does it originate. So Sanjhi originates in the land of Braj, the sacred region of Mathura and Vrindavan, where every dust particle seems to hum Krishna's name. Here art and devotion merge into something ephemeral and divine. Sanjhi isn't just an art form, it's sacred, it's an offering. As Sanjhi is considered to be Radha herself, she's a Devi. And creating her is almost like meditation. She's created with colored powdered pigments, flower petals, and even finely handcrafted stencils. Although I don't like to really refer to Sanjhi as rangoli, but to just make people understand in very simple terms, Sanjhi can also be called a very, very complex form of rangoli, which is created by layer using colored pigment and stencils. What is the meaning of word Sanjhi? What does Sanjhi really mean? The word itself tells a story. It comes from the word Sanj, meaning evening. That sacred twilight hour, also referred to as the Gaudhuli Bela. Gau means cow, Dhuli is dhul, and Bela is time of the day. It is believed that Krishna, after a day spending his day in the pastures with his beloved cows, when he would be coming back, there would be a cloud of dust caused by the movement of the hooves of the cows, and therefore it is called Gaudhuli Bela. This is the time when the lamps are lit, prayers are said, and the world pauses between day and night. It also connects to the word Sanjha, meaning shared. Sanjhi actually, when it is practiced in the temples, is a shared experience, is a shared devotion. 7 to 8 priests get together to create one Sanjhi. Even in villages where it is practiced in its most basic form, women get together and create a single Sanjhi. So Sanjhi becomes both a time and togetherness, an art of transition and harmony. Sanjhi is also known as the Vaishnava Yantra because it stems out of the Vaishnava cult, and it is one of the most unique intangible heritage of art. Sanjhi traces its origins to Vedic times, when the rishis and their families would decorate the yagna mandap, that's where they would be lighting the sacred fire, with flowers and floral patterns. The art also finds mention in many ancient texts, including the Shiv Puran, and is considered as a manifestation of Radha Rani herself. Sanjhi blossomed in the 16th and the 17th centuries at the height of the Bhakti movement in Braj, and developed into a highly sophisticated and complex art form practiced by generations of Brahmin priests of the temple. It was Krishna who would actually make an effort to enchant Radha. He would play the flute, dance, bring flowers, but in Sanjhi, the roles reverse. It's Radha who creates, crafting a beauty for Krishna's gaze. It is believed that each evening, Radha and the gopis would make patterns to attract him. In this act of creation, Sanjhi becomes pure love in form, an offering made with both art and heart. We shall now talk about the various forms, techniques and materials of Sanjhi. Basically, there are 4 types of Sanjhi: Vedi Sanjhi, Jal Sanjhi, Gobar or Cowdung Sanjhi, and the Sanjhi made with flowers. Every element of Sanjhi is natural and symbolic. The base is made of sand from Yamuna, representing purity. The colors are handmade from natural pigments. Yellow from turmeric. Some stones are ground, different colors of stones are ground for different colors. White from rice flour, and so on. Creating a Sanjhi demands stillness and focus. Each sprinkle of color, a breath of devotion. The word Vedi means a platform or a sacred place. And it is on this Vedi, when Sanjhi is created, it is called the Vedi Sanjhi. And in temples, that is how Sanjhi appears. It is created on an altar or Vedi. In Vrindavan, it is created only during the sacred fortnight of Pitru Paksh or the Shraddha period. Priests start each day anew, sprinkling colors onto a platform of sand brought from the banks of Yamuna river. By dusk, it becomes a living yantra, worshipped and admired, and then erased by morning. The first step for making Vedi Sanjhi is creating the Vedi itself. The Vedi is made with sands from the banks of the river Yamuna, as Yamuna is considered to be Krishna's Patrani, or the main queen. The sand is sifted to remove any impurities, any lumps. Sometimes I was told that after the entire Sanjhi had been created, a worm would crawl up right into the center of the Sanjhi, destroying everything. So they have to make sure that there is nothing that would destroy the Sanjhi once it is made. The sand is then piled into a heap. The heap is then pounded for several days until it becomes hard like concrete. Then, with the help of a saw, it is cut into an octagonal shape, symbolizing the 8 Leelas of Krishna, Krishna's 8 favorite gopis, the sacred 8-petaled lotus, the 8 cardinal directions, or the 8 times or the prahars of the periods of the day, and so on. The Vedi is pretty large in size. It is about 8 feet by 8 feet, as we can see. The Vedi Sanjhi is traditionally created by Goswamis of the temple, and this is a generational practice, like I mentioned. Since Sanjhi is considered to be Radha, it is made in a closed room by 7 or 8 priests. Remember that Shraddha period is usually in September, and Vrindavan is hot and humid that time. With no fans, no breeze, these dedicated artists, each with his own part to play in the creation, is confined in that enclosed room, creating this exquisite art with utmost caution and dedication. Because even if one drop of sweat falls on the powdered artwork, it's all over. Finally, when the Vedi is ready in that 8 sided Vedi is ready. They draw a base graph. It's a geometrical pattern that they draw or outline. Or maybe one can say basic shape for the Sanjhi of that particular day using a cotton thread dipped in indigo powder, as you can see on the left image of the screen. Then, as you would see on the right image of the screen, once that graph is ready with the blue lines, they create a base with different colors. And this is an interwoven grid. And it's almost like a basket weaving kind of a thing. One will go in, the other will come, other will go on top. It's an interwoven, very intricate grid. Once the base is ready, it is further detailed, as you will see in images in the center and on the right hand side, where there are flowers that are drawn or that are created on it, or some vine-like motif, and these are all made using the stencils. On the left hand side, you can see the technique. To avoid colors intermingling with the ones that have already been put, folded newspaper is used to cover that area, and then the color is put on that graph using a seal. There is no margin for error. It's absolute caution and absolute dexterity. Once the border is completed, they start with the central motif. So as you would see on the left hand side, that's where the entire border has been created, and now you will see a center space which is empty, and this is what now needs to be created. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very large space, 8 by 8 feet Vedi. So they have a very long bench on which is put across the Vedi, and the artist who is assigned to make the central motif then sits on that bench, bending over in the center, which can even take a few hours to make the central motif, which has to be and which will be an image of one of the Leelas of Krishna. Krishna playing the flute, Krishna dancing with the gopis, Krishna stealing butter, dancing, anything that has Krishna in it. This is an image of a completed Sanjhi with border, central motif, and all sides covered with dry powder. This layer by layer creation takes about 10 to 12 hours of grueling work, and there could be anything from 20 to 30 layers of color, detailing the minutest earring of Sri Radha and the peacock feather of Krishna. Here in this image, you can see Krishna sitting on a swing playing his flute, while Radha is seen making a Sanjhi. This is a Sanjhi in a Sanjhi. As I mentioned to you, Sanjhi is considered to be the manifestation of Radha herself. Now Radha is all ready to meet her beloved, Krishna. So once she is ready, the doors of the rooms are opened for her darshans. At this moment, she is no longer seen merely as an artwork, but as Radha herself. An aarti is performed, bells are rung, flowers are offered, incense fills the air, prasad is distributed, and Sanjhi padas, these are special padas which are sung by a special group of musicians which together are called Sanjhi Samaj. Priests, artists, and devotees come together in perfect rhythm, blurring the boundaries between art and devotion. It is a sacred moment when creation itself becomes worship, where art is not an object, but it becomes an offering. Since Sanjhi is flat on the ground and proper darshans are not possible, a very large mirror is kept at an angle to get a full reflection of the Sanjhi so that the devotees can go closer to that image and observe the minutest of details. And also, people going past the temple doors can see it from afar itself. That was Vedi Sanjhi, one of the most complex art forms, which has absolutely captivated me and actually it was the Vedi Sanjhi which put me on the path of Sanjhi. Now we'll talk about the Jal Sanjhi and its process. Another unique Sanjhi in Vrindavan, which is again now has moved to other places in Udaipur, where it has become again a very celebrated art form and quite well done, I have to say, is Jal Sanjhi, where the water becomes the canvas for the Goswami's creations. Color pigments are gently sprinkled on the water surface, layer by layer, forming divine images. It's art at its most transient, a metaphor for Krishna's own playful, ever-changing nature. This requires extreme dexterity and control, as even a small ripple created by the artist's own breath can sink the entire artwork. A shallow vessel is filled with water and left to become absolutely still. Once it is still, a base layer is sprinkled over it, which is the marble powder, because it is light and it flows, and then the process of creating the Jal Sanjhi begins. Layer by layer, using Sanjhi khakas, the entire work is created. To detail, the artist sometimes can use up to 20 different khakas, keeping one down gently with utmost caution and dexterity, then lifting it up, putting down another one, and another one, and another one, so on, to create the most detailed artwork that you can think of on water. Again, like I said, there is no margin for error. One shake of hand, one extra grain of pigment can sink the entire work. On the left is a partially created, almost completed image, and on the right, as you will see, is the final khaka with the image of Krishna on it. And this is the completed Jal Sanjhi with all its elements and Krishna right in the center. Now we come to the tool, which has become an art form itself. Like you need brush to paint, you need a khaka to create the main Sanjhi. Because of the tangibility of the paper Sanjhi stencils, the tools have come to be known as Sanjhi. But remember, these are khakas and these are just mere tools. Just like you need a brush to paint, you need these khakas to create Sanjhi. These stencils, some so delicate that they look like lace, become treasured tools for temple rituals. I have myself seen some temple collections of these khakas, which are almost 300 years old. These khakas are never discarded in case they are damaged or they get stained, but they are cut and repurposed to become another khaka. Today, artists use them in many ways. They are mounted as artworks, layered installations, bridging craft and contemporary designs. But what are the origins of the Sanjhi khaka? And that's the question that we begin to ask. How did this craft come about? As I was talking to Rajesh ji of Vrindavan Research Institute in Vrindavan, he told us about some records and manuscripts where it mentions that Raja Mansingh a great devotee of Krishna, was requested by the priests in the Vrindavan to offer paper instead of gold and jewelry so that they could record and preserve their scriptures. Paper was an expensive and rare commodity in those times, and so Raja Man Singh had to seek Mughal Emperor Akbar's permission to give paper to the temple. As has been recorded by Parthamitra in his book, Akbar owned a paper mill in Sialkot, and that paper was mostly used for royal records. But on the insistence of Raja Todarmal and Man Singh, it is believed Akbar ordered the paper to be given to the priests in Braj. And that is how paper came about, and we believe that that was the beginning of Sanjhi Khakas. Another reason is that Sanjhi was already being practiced. It was already being created, but perhaps to give it some kind of consistency, perfection and symmetry, the artist thought, why not get khakas made, stencil made, and perhaps that is how khakas came about. What are the tools of making the Sanjhi khakas? 3 very basic tools. Paper, and this has to be handmade paper of about 75 GSM. Any thicker would be difficult to cut. Handmade scissors, specially designed for Sanjhi cutting, and my artist who I work with very proudly tells me that it was his grandfather who had designed this particular type of scissor, and of course the artist's hand. These artists are so practiced and they have such perfection in their hands that they can cut motifs without drawing, motifs like trees, flowers, birds, etc. But for more complex designs, they do draw and maybe sometimes use an old stencil or draw a new one using indigo powder. What are the stories of the Sanjhi Khaka? The motifs are generally centered around Krishna and his various leelas. Stories associated with him, which include the Ras Leela, holy playing scenes, butter, stealing the butter, playing with goats, in the pastures with his beloved cows, playing the flute, and in this one instance, second from the right, there is the story of the Davanal, how he doused the fire in the jungle. So these are the various kind of motifs that you find in Sanjhi Khakas. What is now, let us look at what is the philosophy and symbolism of Sanjhi art. Every day for 15 days of Shraddha period, as the tradition was, the artists would create the Sanjhi, and they would start early morning at about 4 or 5 in the morning, and it would take them 10 to 12 hours. Once completed, and after the prayers, etc., it would be washed away, and the Vedi would be prepared for next morning. The underlying philosophy: all forms dissolve into formlessness. Sanjhi is beautiful because it does not last. After the evening worship, it's washed away, teaching that all form is temporary. It embodies the Hindu idea of Maya and Anitya, illusion and impermanence. The art dissolves, but devotion remains. There is also Sanjhi, we can move. There is also Sanjhi beyond temples. It is also, like I had mentioned, a collective art practiced around and in the Braj area, but also in some parts of Rajasthan. It is here that women, young women, create and worship Sanjhi Devi, as she is called, during the Shraddha period, this is the period before the Navratri, creating images with cow dung. And they chant the Katyayani Mahamantra to asking the goddess, asking the mother to give them a husband and a perfect lover like Krishna. And the chant goes and the shloka goes, Katyayani Mahamay Mahayogini Dhishwari Nand Gop Sutam Devi Patir Me Kurute Namaha. Meaning, O Mother, please grant us the lover like Krishna, like the son of Nanda Baba. This traditional art form, or shall I say devotion, is fading away. And it is now just practiced by a handful of artists from Vrindavan and Mathura. And like I mentioned, it was created only during those 15 days of Shraddha. Sanjhi Utsavs were held, and there used to be competition between temples of whose Sanjhi was best, and people would be running from one temple to another to do the darshans of the Sanjhi Devi. It was practiced in all temples in Vrindavan. But now there are perhaps just 2 or 3 temples that still carry on this tradition, and not for all the 15 days, but maybe just for a couple of days out of those 15 days. The art is in desperate need of revival and dissemination of her history, tradition, techniques and practice is critical to save one of India's most beautiful intangible heritage from disappearing completely. Yeah. Like I said, I have been associated with the art and with the artists for now almost a decade. And through my Datri Foundation, we have made continuous efforts to disseminate knowledge and raise awareness about the sacred tradition of Sanjhi as practiced in temples, extending beyond the Sanjhi Kakas, which are now often regarded simply as Sanjhi art, and to break that myth. Our aim has been to help people understand that Sanjhi Kakas or stencils are merely tools used in the making of Sanjhi and not the complete art form itself. Here I'd like to make clear that I love both my artists who create the Sanjhi, Vedi Sanjhi and the Dal Sanjhi, and also my artists who create the Sanjhi Kakas. I'm not trying to take away anything from Sanjhi Kaka artists because it's an exquisite art form in itself, but just trying to differentiate between a tool and the art, and that is what I'm trying to do here. As part of our initiative, we have organized workshops, conferences and exhibitions across the countries. These include a 3-day seminar at IGNCA in New Delhi, a week-long workshop in collaboration with the JJ School of Applied Art, Mumbai, and several other exhibitions held at various venues across the country, and countless presentations like I'm doing this one today for all of you. Our artists have for 3 consecutive years won the prestigious Art for Hope grant by Hyundai Motors India Limited. These are some of the posters of our initiatives that we have taken. Certificate for Art of Hope, and here's our artists, our main Vedi Sanjhi artist, Acharya Sumit Goswami receiving his grant from the Hyundai Foundation. Yeah. We are also trying to constantly innovate. Unless we contemporize and innovate, keeping the tradition as it is, but we also need to look at what can be done, how can we make this art sustainable. We are continuously working and handholding Sanjhi artists to contemporize and innovate with the art form to make it more relevant and aligned with current aesthetics and needs of the patrons. Our Sanjhi artists have made this beautiful flora and fauna series. The one right at the top on the left hand side, somebody wanted us, my artist, to make a series of birds and flowers as they were, literally like studies of the flora and fauna. And we thought, why not give it a bit of a Sanjhi touch? So we created the Sanjhi grids and the Sanjhi borders. Our Khaka artist has made this much acclaimed Japanese painting called The Wave with paper, and it is absolutely one of the most exquisite Sanjhi Khakas that I have seen. We also conceptualized and designed an entire series called The Ghats of India, where we went on board and we took photographs of some of the most important ghats of the country. And then these architectural details were cut in paper by our Sanjhi Khaka artists, and this is now in the collection of IGNCA, and they have exhibited these 16 artworks across the country. I have also used Sanjhi in the museum that I have created at Vipassana in Gorai, Vipassana Museum in Gorai. It's a 100 square feet wall of Sanjhi art. These are some small but perhaps the only ways by innovation and rethinking that we can save our traditional arts and crafts and give them a new lease of life, a life of dignity and of celebrations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katyayani. Can you put mute?
I'll put myself on mute.
Yeah, maybe
okay.
Put it off when there is
I think you will have to do that.
Thank you so much. I think it was a very, very insightful presentation of a beautiful and intricate art, which is sadly endangered today. We've already received a lot of questions here, and I'm going to take them one by one. Yeah. So the first question is by Nikhil Katyayani. His question is Sanjhi art created only during the Pitru Paksha? And a follow-up question is by Jyoti Kerkar. Why only created during Shraddha?
So yes, it is traditionally created in the temples in Vrindavan only during the 15 days of Shraddha period. And perhaps it was done because that was the time when most people were busy in their own homes, trying to do all the rituals for their ancestors, and nobody would come to the temple. The temple priests had a lot of time, and also the chadhavas or the offerings that came to the temple during those 15 days would dwindle. Now how do you get them? So they started creating this art form, and in the evening when they opened, and by the time the householder would have finished with the rituals of feeding the Brahmin and doing all the prayers and etc., even they had time to come out. And that was perhaps why it was created only during the 15-day Shraddha period. More time in the hands of the priests, and to get offerings somehow and get people to come to the temple and give the offerings was perhaps the reason. Yes.
So always practical reason for that, right? Okay. So another follow-up question. Is this specific to any particular sampradaya of Vrindavan, or other sampradayas also created? And when and where do we go in Vrindavan to see the collection of Sanjhi?
So yes, it is a Vaishnava tradition. All Krishna temples used to do this, create the Sanjhi art. Like I said, it is considered to be Radha Rani herself. Sanjhi becomes Radha. And so Radha means Krishna. So all Krishna temples used to create this art form. And it was only, and what was the second part of your question? Sorry, Priya?
When and what Vrindavan to see collection of Sanjhi art?
So one will have to go during the Shraddha period to see this. You have photographs, and like I said, it's like a performance art. You can't carry it back in a frame or anything. It's a performance art you see and you come back, and like I mentioned, it is washed away so that the Vedi is cleared for the next day's creation. So there is no permanent, collection to see Sanjhi art, but one of my artist who has been working, who's a Vedi artist and very famous one and a very well-known one, Acharya Sumitji, has translated the Sanjhi art, the Vedi Sanjhi, into oil paintings. So he has these frames, and yeah, so if you want to go and see that, then you could perhaps go to him. But he's the only one I know who has actually taken the Vedi Sanjhi onto canvas.
Okay. I have a question from my side. In the meantime, if anybody else doesn't have any questions, a very quick question in the sense that you've been there so many times, and I'm sure there have been some memorable experiences that have stayed with you, or some stories from your journey while on your journey to discover the Sanjhi art form that you like to share.
Yeah, so it was quite ironical that while we are trying to revive this art form and help the artists, we also faced a bit of a pushback, because there was this whole idea, because Sanjhi, like I said, is sacred, is Radha Rani herself. So how can you take her out? And like I mentioned to you people, that while she's being created, she's done in an enclosed room, because this is Radha getting ready. How can a woman get ready in view of public? So she's getting ready inside in a room. But when we took her out, she became an exhibition. And because we were showing the techniques, we wanted to show the intricacy, we wanted to demonstrate the complexities. And how do you teach the next generation unless they see all this? So there was a pushback in the sense that we heard that, आप हमारे मान्य को बाहर लेके जा रहे हैं. So the question was, I tried to explain to them that when a flower also has several roots, so to say, when you put it in a temple, it becomes an offering. When you put it in a vase in a house, it's decorative. When you put it on somebody's, pyre or something, it's an offering that you make as. So similar way, we will have to look at this art form. As long as she's in the temple, in the precincts of the temple, she's Radha. But when she comes out, she becomes an art form. So that was something that I had to kind of wrangle with.
Very well explained. Also, can you elaborate, a question from Jyoti, can you elaborate more about how the Japanese art has come to do this art form? Did they have the tools?
I'm not really aware, but it seems that the mandalas that the Buddhists make were inspired by Sanjhi art. I mean, of course, the Buddhists say that it was the Vaishnavas who were inspired, but the Vaishnava priests of Vrindavan and of Braj area say no, it was they who inspired the Buddhist monks to make the mandala. So perhaps that's how it traveled and reached the Japanese artists.
A couple of questions again from my side. Since it's an endangered art form, how can local communities, tourists, or even institutions contribute to its survival?
So Vrindavan Research Institute in Vrindavan itself is working very, very hard, and a lot of initiatives are being undertaken by themselves, and they are there. I go, I visit, I come back, so, but they are there and they have started engaging and they have started holding workshops, demonstrations, and also utsavs for Sanjhi. So there has been a renewed interest in the art form, and maybe perhaps because of the social media and the outreach. Because of that, I see a lot of local children now uh, wanting to get associated with the art form, to practice the art form and get and engage with the art form.
Okay, thanks. And last from my side, I think it's, as you again rightly alluded to, the younger generation. What are the barriers are they facing in terms of learning this art, or showing, especially those who are showing intent to learn this art? Because as in during our discussion, you mentioned there are only 3-4 people who are left who know the art so well, right?
So see, now the Sanjhi Kaka is a tangible art, and they have been able to innovate and contemporize it. And like I mentioned, they are using, I myself have used them in so many different ways. But so there is commerce. They are able to make a livelihood out of that. Whereas the Vedi Sanji, the Jal Sanji remains an art. And to take out 15 days and to practice this for 10 to 12 hours, the young are not so interested, because A, it's time consuming, B, there is no money. So to enthuse them to get back into the traditional art form is very difficult. It's a challenge. But like I said, I would think that because of the social media, there is a renewed interest even in that. And it gives me immense, I feel really good and I feel assured. Like when last time I was there for a shoot, we saw that there were some youngsters who were helping their fathers. And traditionally, this is a male art where the men create this, and to see these young boys helping their fathers was very, very reassuring.
I'm very happy to hear this. It's a positive note for all of us. So I think we have come to almost all the questions that have been mentioned in the chat box have been answered. Anything that you would like to share with the attendees as a parting note?
So even with Vedi Sanji, there are ways of engaging with it, especially Jal Sanji. What we did was that we do a lot of demonstrations and we do a lot of workshops. And we have even contemporized the stencil. So, for instance, when we were at Hyundai, what we did was that we created a full Jal Sanji with Hyundai logo. So we moved away from the Krishna motif and we created that. So, these are ways of contemporizing, reviving, and creating an interest and rethinking. So that's all I can say, and I would like everybody who's there listening to us today to go to Vrindavan maybe during the Shraddha period and see this exquisite art form if one can. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be experts. We're delighted to share that good interaction. Though it was a small crowd who's interested in this endangered form, I'm happy they've stayed till the end. It shows that the presentation was very engaging. So thank you once again, and thank you everyone for being part of this presentation.